Zakk Colburn. How are you, brother?
I'm doing good, man. I just landed in Miami, so I'm a little Airbnb right now. That's why it looks like I'm in a kid's bedroom.
Nice. What are you doing in Miami?
I am exercising my freedom as a business owner. A couple of my
Okay.
friends texted me about 2 days ago, and they're like, "Hey, we're going to Miami this weekend. We have an extra room. You should come through." I said, "I got the time. I have no reason to say no, so why not?"
Yeah,
So flew out here. We're gonna have some fun this weekend, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
that's awesome, bro. That's awesome. That's a perfect segue into telling a little bit about who you are. So, Zach, I know I want to start out at like the beginning, right? Like the very, very beginning. And I know that you and I, especially over the last like 2 months as we've worked on this PTBI collab with AR, we've kind of gotten closer and started to talk about more stuff. But one question that I haven't asked you yet, actually personally, is like what got you started into not coaching other coaches, not like, you know, coaching other people for yourself as far as like fitness coaching, because I know you did that for a while. Why did you start working out? Like what made you pick up a heavy object for the first time?
Great question, man. I think I had always had an attraction to working out, but I just
Okay.
never really knew how to start. So I remember in the fifth grade, I used to play baseball, and my dad got me a batting coach. And one of the exercises that my batting coach had me do was 5 push-ups at night, 5 push-ups in the morning. And then he said every single day you add an extra push-up. And so I got to the point where I was doing 50 push-ups at night, 50 push-ups in the morning. And little did I know, little 11-year-old Zach was practicing progressive overload for the first
Yeah.
time. Um, but after that, it's like you could only do so many push-ups before you're just, get tired. And
Yeah.
I stopped doing that. My parents had little 8-pound weights in their bedroom, and I'd pick that up. And, I'd always had the interest, but I just didn't exactly know like how to get started or do anything like that. But it wasn't until I was a sophomore in high school. I used to get teased a little bit. Like I wasn't bullied by any means, but like my friends would definitely make comments that would get under my skin. I was on the skinnier side,
Mm-hmm.
and so they would put their fingers around my bicep, and they'd be able to
Yeah.
touch their middle finger and their thumb, and just tease me and stuff. But I got into a skateboarding accident. I broke my collarbone bombing a hill. I fell off my skateboard and messed my shoulder up pretty bad. And one of my friends made a comment that was like, "Hey, if you weren't so skinny and you had some meat on your bones, you probably wouldn't have broken your collarbone." And that for me, I was like, okay, that is my commitment to actually getting started and
Yeah.
making a change and doing something about the way I felt in my body. So I started with P90X, which was like an at-home workout program that my mom had. She just had DVDs, and I followed that program for 90 days, and I saw minimal results, but it was enough for me to be like, "Hey, this is actually something I enjoy." So
Okay.
after that, I joined the YMCA gym my junior year of high school, and I would walk to the gym after school and just lift with my friends. And it was very clearly early on that I was the one that was way more interested in it than they were. I ended up training them. And that was around the time that Instagram came out. Gymshark came out. The first round of like fitness influencers hit the market, and I'm like, this is what I want to do. Like I fell
Yeah.
in love, and that's pretty much how it started.
Dude, that where did you grow up?
I grew up in Salinas, California.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So I have almost an exactly identical kind of like origin story to you because I was always, I would be what you probably would consider like skinny fat. I would
Hmm.
kind of have categorized myself. Um, and I really, so for me, it was like, it was more of a vanity thing. Like I wanted to like change how I looked because I just didn't like how I looked. I didn't like ever being shirtless. I always felt like I was kind of a little bit, I always remember feeling kind of like pudgy or like fat, even though I wasn't. You could tell that I wasn't, but I also just didn't have like any definition, right?
Yeah.
Um, anyways, so when you said you would walk to the YMCA after school every day, like that's what I did. I literally did P90X in my garage of my dad for a
Yeah.
little while, and I hated it. I was like, this sucks, because of course, whenever you're a kid, like especially if you're trying to work out before you hit puberty, it's you just get sore. That's what you
Yeah.
get from working out. You just get sore and it's painful and it's uncomfortable. It's super early in the morning or super late at night. That's all you know. And it's like, yeah, I'm gonna go do this thing that my dad's forcing me to do, and I'm just gonna hurt after. Like that's all. And so whenever I like actually started to mature, like hit my growth spurt and everything, and then saw a little bit of results from it, I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna go after school. Well, then the 2 hours I had to mess around before parents were off work, I'm like, I'm gonna go lift. And so that's what I started doing was just
Yeah,
I would go to
that's
the
just
Y every single day, jack
same
around in the
thing.
weight room, do some flexes in the mirror and stuff. And like that was that. And it was the same thing as what you said with like I just was way more into it than the rest of my buddies. They'd show up like a couple of the days a week, or like the ones that would go every day. It was like they didn't care much outside of that about the whole fitness thing. It was just we're gonna go lift and do this as like a couple of friends.
Yeah,
Um, so that's crazy. Such similar stories.
yeah, yeah. I remember. I know the feeling of being skinny fat because like when you're wearing a t-shirt, you're skinny, but when you
Hmm.
take your shirt off, there's no six pack.
No, yeah,
And girls would be like, "Where's your six pack?" And they poke your stomach, and you're like, "Well, fuck, I don't know."
yeah. Like, how do you get one? Someone
Yeah,
tell me. Like, I want to have the same thing that these guys have, but like, what's the missing piece here? Um, so yeah, and there's nothing like, especially as a skinny dude, like starting to get the first little tiny bit of hypertrophy, and you see it, and you're like, holy crap! Like I
yeah.
can
I thought I was
that
I thought
feeling
I
of
was Batman, dude.
yeah, yeah, that feeling of empowerment of like you're like the equation. I always call it the equation. Kind of
Mhm.
just clicks in your mind. It's like okay, if I work hard and am consistent, and then also add in some time, like I get the results. And I
Mhm.
remember feeling so like optimistic from there. It's like I just got to keep doing this, which I enjoy, and then I'm gonna keep seeing this, which I really enjoy. Like it's just such a cool
Yeah.
feeling.
Yeah, and then you spend your entire life trying to chase that high that you got
Yeah,
when you were 16.
and no one tells you that it's not gonna happen near as
Yeah,
fast
it's
once you
like
get like a year in. So
yeah,
it just kind of gets you hooked, and then you're just doing it for the rest of your life.
100%.
Um, but that's okay. That's super cool, and I didn't know we had that. I mean, not many people know the feeling of like walking to the YMCA after school and that crowd. So that was cool. I think probably 70% of my my class in Perry, Oklahoma, got their first kiss at the YMCA after school. Like, that was like
Nice.
the spot where everyone would go hang out and
Yeah.
just be degenerate children. That's funny. But okay, so you got into working out. You kind of talked about where you're like what that journey looked like through school. Did you go to like any type of like college or anything like that after?
Yeah, dude, so when I became a junior in high school, like I said, that's like when, Gymshark first got launched.
Yep.
Like, because I remember first getting into the gym, and I'm like, I want to try to find some like cool gym clothes, and there like wasn't any cool gym clothes
Didn't
at all.
exist.
It was like Under Armour at Big Five or like vintage Gold's Gym stringers. And then
Yes.
I remember when Gymshark first hit the ground, and I'm like, oh, this is dope. And then they built a brand on Instagram, and I'm like, I'm gonna be a fitness influencer. I
Hmm.
was 16 years old, and that was my life path. And I kept telling my parents like, hey, I really want to pursue fitness and I want to, do this social media thing. And they're like, you're crazy. You got to go to school. And so from my junior year to senior year, my parents put me in like college prep, but I knew I didn't really want to go. So I kind of intentionally put me in a position to where I didn't get into any of the schools that I wanted to.
Okay.
And so I stayed back in Salinas, did 2 years at our community college while I focused mainly on building my social media following. And in those 2 years, I spent a ton of time reading books on investing, on business, on sales, pretty much anything I could get my hands on to help me, potentially figure out my own thing. And I had this plan to where, if I could just buy myself enough time with my parents supporting me while I was kind of bullshitting my way through college, and hopefully by the time that college comes to an end, I'll have something figured out. Then I'll be all right. And so that was pretty much my plan out of high school is that I was just going to go to community college, waste my time there, but hopefully get something to pop off before school ended. And luckily that was the case that happened. Around my fourth year of community college, I was able to get my online coaching business to the point to where I didn't have to go back to school. I could quit my job and I was able to go all in on what I loved.
What were the things you tried before online coaching?
Yeah, I
Any
tried to
businesses?
start a I started trying to start a clothing company.
Same.
I turned my mom's garage into a studio and I trained in person there. So I did have some in-person experience. I would pick up kids from my high school. I was about like 2 years after graduating high school. I'd pick up kids in my Jeep and bring it over to my house, charge them $10 a head.
Yep.
But I was like, dude, I can't do this forever. I'm already 2 years out of high school. Like I can't, these kids can't be my client base forever. And
Yeah.
I try to do some videography stuff for, supplement companies. I tried to, do Amazon FBA. I bust tables, did a yogurt shop. I tried, man, dude, I tried to do anything I could,
Yeah.
anything I could. And it wasn't until the whole time I was trying stuff, I was always building my personal brand on Instagram. And it wasn't until I had no choice but to go all in on my personal brand that that's when things actually started to take traction.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. I mean, I did the same thing. I always knew my saying is I always knew I was going to be an entrepreneur. Like I've always loved entrepreneurship since before I knew there was a word for it.
Yeah,
And I started my first little thing was whenever I was 12 years old. I always get if it was 12 or 13, but 12 or 13 years old, I started making those. Do you remember those paracord survival bracelets?
yeah, I do.
They're like woven. Yeah, I
Yep.
started making those, and I like looked up how to make them. And my dad would take me to go get um, like from this survival store. He'd take me to go get these spools of the different colors and stuff. And as soon as I found out, like I would make them for myself, and then my friends would start to ask me. So I'd be like, "Yeah, like they're $5." And then I would go and like start selling them at school. And then my town that I grew up in, Perry, was so small that like the I was at the middle school, and like the elementary school found out about these bracelets, and the high school found out about these bracelets. And so my grandma worked at the high school, and my mom worked at the elementary school. And so they would bring me orders, and then I would bring like a huge bag of bracelets, and we'd all meet up in like the local donut shop, and I would like give them the bracelets. They'd give me the orders and the cash, and like and I would like every week. That's how it was. And I was like,
That's
this is
awesome.
awesome. Like I love this.
Do you ever
Um,
inspire any competition? Someone was like, I can do this better.
I think somebody made those little like plastic versions of those that looked similar, but they were small and plastic. I don't know if you remember
Gotcha.
those, but no, not really, honestly.
That's
And
funny.
uh, and my dad at one point told me like, hey, you should take this online. And so I was like, well, don't you have to have like $1 million to make a website? And he's like, no, figure it out. And so I looked up and figured out how to make a website and started selling them online. I even
Wow, that's
started running
impressive.
Google ads. And of course, I've lost all the money that I made in Google ads because I was like 13 years old trying to manage budgets and clicks and decipher all this crap. And anyways, that was kind of like how I got my start in entrepreneurship. I didn't know there was a word for it yet. So whenever I found out in college that you could get at the college I went to an entrepreneurship degree, I was like, oh, this is what I should. If I have to go to college and I want to do this thing, like I'll just go do this. And I did the t-shirt business. I did like little lawn care businesses. I did all the things that you typically do.
Yeah, that's
Um,
it. My first business. I remember I was in seventh grade, and I wanted a PSP Go for the like. It
those
was
things
like
were
my
so
dream.
cool. Those
It was
things
my
were
dream,
so
dude,
cool.
and I had no way of getting it. So my first business was going into my brother's room and finding all the shit that he wouldn't notice is gone, and then selling it to kids at school.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
so like a little watch, a belt, couple shoes, like just whatever I
Hmm.
can get my hands on. Like, hey, he won't notice this. I can flip this.
That's
Uh,
so funny.
yeah,
Yeah, I did the sneakers thing too. I figured out how to like buy like the hype sneakers or try to be on whenever they were gonna drop and like resell them right after that on eBay. But it is cool because you know, I say all that to basically ask you the question because I always felt like I was going to be an entrepreneur. Like I knew that that was my path. Was that something that you always felt or knew?
no, no, actually, it wasn't. My entire high school career, I fell into a really deep depression because I had this existential crisis early on that like I didn't know what I was going to do with my life, and a lot of the opportunities that were presented in front of me, I definitely did not want to do those. So it was like, okay, I don't want to move forward, but I also don't know where I want to go. And I also didn't have the support system around me to like really nurture my talents and support me in other areas besides just going to college. So I had a really hard time, you know, figuring myself out, figuring my life out. And entrepreneurship was kind of like a Hail Mary to me.
Yeah.
I read Rich Dad Poor Dad by chance one day because it would just happen to be on a shelf that my dad. It
Mm,
was like one of those books that's been sitting on my dad's shelf for like 10 years, and I'd always seen it, but it's never really stuck out to me. And I just happened to be bored one Saturday, read through it, and I learned about investing, and I learned about
it's a great
how.
book.
Yeah, I learned about how normal everyday people can become millionaires and build wealth without needing to be rich, without needing to be famous. And I thought, oh, this is something that I could apply in my life and actually achieve, and I can actually see myself doing something like this. And so that introduced me to the world of investing. And then so I got obsessed with investing. I was like, I need to open up a stock portfolio. I need to
Yeah.
start trading, currencies. But then I realized I had no money.
Yeah.
I was like, I can't invest $50 a month. Like, I need to go get a job. And so I went and got a job, and I'm like, wait, this isn't fast enough. Let me figure out how can I make money faster. And that's what led me into one thing, into another, into another, into another, until eventually it was like I found what I needed to find. And now my passion is more so about giving back to people who are in a position like I was, that didn't have the support of their family, that didn't, come from a background of entrepreneurship and needed the guidance and mentorship. When I was about 23, I was in this position to where I wasn't fully in, but I also couldn't go back. And I had a mentor. His name is Ross Johnson. Absolutely changed my life. I still talk to him to this day. Really good friend of mine. And he brought me in and he let me sleep on his couch. He let me, be like an annoying little brother. I would
Yeah.
sit in on, like, he'd go to dinners like with, really wealthy people, and I just sit there and listen. And he was the one that really taught me about entrepreneurship and business and how to think. And I want to be able to give that to people like myself who are coming out of that kind of background.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And that's a, I always hesitate to use this term, but it is such a great description for like that mentality. I hesitate because Andrew Tate uses it all the time, but like the matrix, right?
Mhm.
Like unplugging from the matrix. It's such a big, people don't realize how true that is for the majority of people. Like the vast majority of people just go through their lives and they never want to question if this is what they're supposed to be doing, if there's more out there for them, if there's anything else that opportunity wise they could go chase down or learn or build or do. And it sounds like Ross was kind of like the person for you that kind of like woke you up to, here's what this looks like to break out of it. Now it's still your choice, but this path it exists at least.
Yeah, I mean, dude, he was able to answer questions that I always had that no one else had the answer to. Like,
Hmm.
my parents, you're not going to go get a job. Okay, well, what about financial security? I'm like, I don't fucking know. And so I asked Ross, what about financial security? And he's like, dude, as long as you learn the skill sets on how to make money for yourself, you will always be financially insecure
You
or
always have.
financially secure. He said, if I told you right now, after what I learned from Ross, he said, if I told you to go out there and sign 5 clients in the next week, would you know how to do it? And I said, yeah, after what you taught me, I would know exactly how to sign 5 clients. I can make, 3 grand in the next 7 days. And he's like, you never have to worry about money again. And
Hmm.
it was that perspective that I needed, that like my parents didn't have the answer to that.
Yeah.
My parents said, what about health insurance? I asked Ross, what about health insurance? He's like, just buy health insurance. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, that, duh. Like, so having someone in my life to be able to answer the questions that no one else had the answer to was what I needed at the time.
That's so powerful. That's so powerful. Okay, so you're training kids in your parents' garage. You're trying all these things. You're trying to build, and you have an emphasis on fitness that you really enjoy.
Mhm.
So when did that kind of passion for both business and health and fitness? When did that end up combining into your own online coaching company?
Yeah, so it was quite it was a long process. So from I graduated high school in 2014. I stayed home. I turned my mom's garage into a gym. I did
Yeah.
that for about 2 years, trying to build my social media platform. 2016 comes around. My girlfriend at the time, who I'd been dating for about 2 years, graduates high school, and she's like, "Hey, I'm moving down to San Diego. I'm not going to stay here in Salinas." And I said, well, I don't really have a plan here. I don't exactly know what I'm doing at my mom's house, training these people in a garage. I have no idea like where I'm going. So I'm gonna go with you. Like we're just gonna go down there and figure it out. And so we moved down to San Diego. It was just me and her brother, and we got an apartment. We didn't know anybody. I got a job bussing tables at BJ's Brew House,
Yep.
and
It's a great restaurant, by the way.
I've I best years of my life, dude. Bussing tables, like I had such a blast.
Yeah.
So I was busting tables at BJ's Brew House from 2016 to 2018, still telling everybody that I was going to go to college and I'm taking these classes, but really I was just buying time.
Hmm.
Um, so I kind of walked away from all business ventures, and I tried to I try to get back into what, real life. Like I was like, okay, we go down to San Diego and get a job. I'm going to apply myself in school, and I'm going to try to, pack up this dream. And what ended up happening is I just didn't have what it took for college. Like I
Mm,
failed classes. I got on academic dismissal. They didn't want me to come back and take more classes. I didn't get into the schools that I wanted to get into. So by the time that all of my friends were graduating high school or graduating college, I hadn't even gotten in. Like, and I was like, okay, well, I have a choice now. I can either do another year at community college at 23, 24, and maybe get into a 4 year to get a bachelor's degree. And even then, I'd have another 2 years. I wouldn't graduate college until I was 25, 26. I didn't want to do that.
yeah,
So I was like, okay, I have to figure this out. Like, and one of my good friends, Sumner, I was having like an existential crisis at the time. He's like,
yeah,
why don't you do online coaching? Like, we're in San Diego. You've built up a pretty good following on social media. A couple of the friends that we've met in the gym had kind of gotten into online coaching. They were doing it a little bit. And I was like, you know what? I'll give it a shot. So I called up one of my friends, Lexi DeYoung, who unfortunately passed away last year. She took the time out to get lunch with me and show me how to get started with online coaching. She showed me everything that she did. At the time, I think she was making like 5 grand a month, and I was like, dude, if I can just do that, I'd be balling. Like,
yeah,
I'd
yeah.
be set. Um, so that was the initial goal. She showed me what she was doing. I made a post on Instagram, and I was like, "Hey, I'm looking to take on a couple clients who want to be online coach or who want to be online coaching clients." I had one person who was interested. I got on the phone with him. I charged him $50 a month for 12 weeks. So he paid me $150. He
Hmm.
sent me a PayPal payment. And that was the moment I'm like, okay, I can do this. Like this is what I'm gonna do. So after that, I didn't re-enroll in school. I quit my job busting tables and I went all in on online coaching.
Got it. Got it. And so when did you go from that? Like, what was the evolutions of? Because I charged $50 a month whenever I started out too. That's how I started charging in college. I was charging like $25 a session if you wanted to come see me in person at a gym, and if you wanted to do online, then it was $50 a month. And I was like, this feels like a pretty good deal to me. Like I feel like I'm charging enough, and whenever you start to get those first kind of sales in and you kind of unlock like, oh wait, I can actually make money doing this, and I also like it, and I also have fun actually fulfilling the service, and that's kind of a different thing from what a typical job is, right?
Mhm.
So how did it evolve from that first person paying you $150?
Dude, I mean, at first, I really didn't care about making a lot of money. Like 10K for today is like standard. It's like industry standard.
Yeah,
But
it's it's
back in
it's what everyone is trying to get to.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. But back in 2017, 10K wasn't even a thing. Like no one said 10K. And
yeah,
so I didn't even know 10K was like a number for me to shoot for. All I wanted to do was to be able to buy groceries and pay my rent without it declining and not having to look at my bank account, right? I was
hmm,
like, I just want to be able to not look at my bank account and just be able to swipe and hope that there's enough money in there. That's it.
yeah,
So my game plan was to sign 50 clients at $100 a month. I was like, if $100 a month will be enough to where I don't need to, it'll be an easy close, and then
yeah,
50 clients, I'll be making 5 grand a month. So that was my plan. And I just went balls to the wall and did not stop. And it worked because $100 a month was low enough for people to just be like, yeah, like sure, like that's it, okay.
hmm,
So I got up to 50 clients and realized that I couldn't scale past that because 50 clients is a lot to manage. So I raised my prices from 100 to 200. A few clients dropped off, had around 30 clients, raised them from 200 to 300, and boom, I was making 10 grand a month.
hmm.
Um, so that's kind of the process and the evolution of how it happened.
Got it, got it. And then from there, I guess what was the evolution that led to you creating PTBI?
Yeah. So I had done online coaching successfully for about 2 years at this point. Um, and it was one of those things where I felt more passionate teaching the business side of things, teaching the things that Ross taught me to, people who were in a position that I was in. It
Hmm.
was, Jose Gallegos.
Yeah.
So Jose Gallegos is from my hometown. We actually met when I was in college, training people at my mom's garage. I would see him at the gym every single day, and we would talk about. He was, one of our gym friends. And when I moved to San Diego, he saw me move, and every time I'd come home, I'd see him. We'd catch up, and then he saw me get into the online coaching thing, and he saw me move to Virginia. He saw me do all these things, and every time I'd come home, he'd just be in the same exact position. And I'm like, dude, you know so much. Like, you are so passionate about fitness. You're so passionate about bodybuilding. And I would see him. He wasn't even a trainer at the gym. He was delivering the paper towels to the gym. He was the guy refilling. Like he would come up in the truck, come
Yep.
in with the paper towels, put them in the bathroom. That was him.
Mhm.
I'm like, dude, what are you doing? I'm like, why don't you get started with online coaching? And say, oh, these limiting beliefs, right? So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna help this person, and I'm going to put together this course. He was the person that I had in mind. I'm like, someone who has the passion, has the knowledge, but just needs the roadmap to learn how to get started. And so I built the course, sold it to him for $500. He loved it, saw great results, sold it to another person, sold it to another person, and then eventually I was like, okay, this is actually getting people results. This is changing people's lives. I'm gonna go all in on this thing. So it really just started as like me seeing Jose and be like, I want to help this, I want to help him,
Mhm.
and yeah, it kind of just naturally grew organically from there.
Wow. I had no idea. I mean, I knew that you guys were friends. I had no idea that PTBI was literally built for him based off
Yeah,
of him.
and we did a retreat in 2021, and that was my opening speech. Is like, dude, like PTBI was literally built for Jose Gallegos, and I'm so proud because so many people come and go in the coaching space. I'm sure that you've seen this.
Yeah.
The coaches that are here today weren't here 3 years ago. The coaches that were there 3 years ago aren't there today. And he was the first person that I sold PTBI to, and he was the person that I built PTBI for, and he's still doing well, and that makes me so happy.
Yeah. That's so awesome. That's huge. Yeah, he's a fantastic guy. Him and Mario both. I think you know both of them.
They're both from
Uh,
Salinas.
yeah, yeah, that's insane. I
Yeah.
never knew that connect. I mean, I knew. So I met up with, or I guess you and Mario were both at summer shredding of 2022.
Two.
Was that when we met?
Yep. Yep.
Okay, yeah. And so I think I didn't actually meet Mario at that, but I had seen enough of your ads being in the coaching space that I recognized you at the gym, and you were
Hmm.
like working out. And I remember walking up to you and be like, are you Zakk Colburn?" And you were like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Dude, I always see your stuff. Like, nice to meet you." And just kind of like, I think I briefly told you about my equipment business at the
Yep.
time.
Yep. I remember.
Um, and so, anyways, and I maybe even gave you some grips or something. Then
I think you meant to send me some
I
grips.
probably forgot to.
Yeah,
That
I
sounds
don't
like
know.
me. That sounds
Yeah,
like me. So I'm sorry.
it's
Two
all
years
good.
later, if I didn't send those, but um, anyways, I remember meeting you and thinking like, because at that time I wasn't like running any type of ads. I wasn't working with coaches. I was just running my own coaching business and had the equipment company and stuff like that. And I remember meeting you and recognizing you from your ads. I'm like, that guy's doing it. Like he's doing the thing. And so it was a cool experience for me. But at that same event, I Mario bought grips from me and made like a crazy cool video. And so I ended up becoming friends with him and then becoming friends with Jose from him. And then they became athletes in my company. And then the whole thing kind of like built
Yeah,
off
full
from there
circle.
as, being able to, connect with you. And then now we've got this collaboration with AR. So that's super cool. I, I had another question that I wanted to ask you around PTBI is like, what do you think the gap in the industry that you saw? Like, what was that gap with Jose that you're filling with PTBI?
Mm. I think I always say this that business isn't rocket science,
Mm-hmm.
right? It is quite literally a malleable skill set and an algorithm, right? There's only a few things that you need to do. You need to create content, you need to introduce yourself to people, you need to sell, and those are all things that you can get better at. And so
Yeah,
you should constantly get better at it. But like outside of that, there's not much more you need to do.
yeah,
The thing that holds a lot of people back is mindset, improper expectations, comparison. A lot of the things that I see, coaches struggle with is like, they get up to the 10K per month mark, and I've seen this happen so many times. They get up to the 10K per month mark, but they just get so tired and beaten down of
Burnout.
like having to chase clients down or clients disputing or dealing with that negative side of business, because obviously everyone sees the highlight reel of like, hey, this person hit a record month, this person's on a vacation in the beach of the Bahamas, but they don't ever see that the negative review that they got, or the disputed payment that they got, or the ghosting clients and the defaults that are happening. So I
Mhm.
think people just get tired of that. And what I always try to do is I try to give people the proper expectations. I have a client, his name is Eric Barrera. He just quit his job, went all in on online coaching. He's making around 4 to 6K per month. But you could tell he's antsy because he hasn't necessarily been in the entrepreneurship game long enough to feel secure. Those
Mhm.
first few months are really, really scary. So I always have to tell him, like, dude, relax. Just remember, you might not be making as much money as you want to, but you did just quit your job 3 months ago. So it's going to take time. But also remember this: you are living the dream. You are quite literally living the dream. You get
Mhm.
to work out when you want to, you get to create content for a living, you get to help people, and you're staying afloat with the money. You just need to stick with it. And I don't think a lot of people have the mindset grit to make it through those tough seasons in the very beginning. So I try to. I mean, PTBI has the technical know-how, but I try to instill that in
The mental.
the mental exactly.
Mhm. Yeah, makes sense. And I do think that fundamentally there's a lot of people that are and a lot of people that aren't cut out for just entrepreneurship in general, because it is a lot of I talk a ton on this podcast about like the glorified work when you want, how you want, from where you want, like be your own boss, set your own hours, like all of that type of stuff that gets glorified on social media. And guys like you or me or Mike, like we probably don't do the best job of showing both sides, because it's hard to show like the negative sides of it a lot of times, right? And also, if you're trying to sell a certain thing, you mostly want to sell the positives and the
Hmm.
benefits. But it is hard because, like, with what we sell, we're trying to sell the positives of this specific life choice and this specific career path. And so when people come in and they expect to only see the positives. And so
Hmm.
there's almost this balancing act that you have to do of like, yeah, this is the package. These are the benefits. These are the goals that we're trying to sell, because this is possible. And like buying into this gets you closer to this, but there's also this huge winding path that you
Hmm.
kind of have to go through in order to get there. So how have you always gone about like trying to instill that mental side of things while still showing the package and showing the dream?
So I wrote a book in 2021, and it was a story of me graduating high school to hitting my first 10K month, and everything I experienced in between that page. It's about like
I actually had that on
120.
my notes to
Yeah,
ask you about your book. I had
it's
book
about
question mark because
yeah.
I feel like I've seen you promote it, like an Amazon link to your book before,
Mhm.
and I couldn't find it on your page, and so I wanted to, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so for me, it was like the way that I instilled that into people is that every single student gets a free copy of my book, and
Okay.
that book shows the behind the scenes. It shows like every single
Mhm.
challenge and roadblock. It brings you into the my mindset of what I was experiencing, how I was able to navigate that situation, and what my mindset, thought process and the lessons that I learned. And I think giving that to people in the very beginning of like, hey, this is what it's going to look like to hit your first 10K month. It gives them so much more of a realistic expectation of like what it's actually going to take. Because for me,
Mhm.
it took from 2014 to 2018. Actually, it was around like 2018, 2019 to hit my first 10K month. Um, and I was trying to make money that whole time. So that's like 4 to 5 years of not making it before I finally had enough to make a average, like a normal American living.
Yeah.
Um, so that's how we also have mindset coaches in our program as well. Her name is Lexi Tavares. She is fantastic. All of our PTBI students get assigned a one-on-one coach. And if they ever have any roadblocks, if there's any challenges that they're going through, or their one-on-one coach will put them on with Lexi, and they'll
Mhm.
do a session where they work on the challenges, rewrite their belief system, and Lexi does a really really great job with that. So those are a couple ways that we do it, is that we lay out the story expectations from the beginning, so they have proper expectations of what it's actually going to look like, and then we give them the coach to be able to work with them on it.
That's awesome. Yeah, the one-on-one attention is huge. It really is. And so balancing that one-on-one attention with kind of like the blanketed education on, hey, here are the steps, but your specific journey might look a little bit different. And so here's support in case there's a turn that's not necessarily explicitly covered in these steps. So I like that a lot. How, in your opinion, can fitness coaches in 2024, now heading into 2025, stand out in the increasingly crowded space?
Dude, I mean, the thing is everything's been done before. Like everything has already been done before. And so now personal branding is more important than ever.
Mm-hmm.
Like information is one thing. Yeah, you should have information, but like if your page is purely based on, facts and information, that's fine, but like you have to have something that's going to, help you stand out. So there's two ways you can go about it. You can either lean all the way in on personal branding, and that's going to be like, your aesthetic, your colors, your mood, your
Mm-hmm.
beliefs, right? All of those things go into personal branding, your backstory, talking about your story, your transformations, the things that you've gone through, your personal life. You can go all the way in over there. Or if you wanted to go in the more educational route, you have to have some sort of, not like trademark, but like recognizable style of content,
Yeah.
right? So either it's very quick and witty, either it is dry and sarcastic, or you have a lot of infographics. You're consistently bringing up studies and showing like research examples, or you are, I don't know. Another example could be,
Like skits.
doing,
Skits
yes,
is
skits,
another huge one
exactly,
now.
like educating through comedy. You
Mhm.
have to have something, like something that makes you different, because the knowledge alone, and I'm sorry, but your transformation, like just your fitness, everyone's fucking fit. Like
Yeah,
everyone's fucking fit. So
everyone in the
your
space, yeah.
story and your delivery of how you introduce the information is what makes you different in today's world.
Mhm. I agree. I agree. And it's really the biggest thing that you can cut from like 70 or 80% of online coaches out there is if you just talk to the camera.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
many coaches are still so scared to, and we tell our coaches on our education calls all the time with AR is just like, hey, you can be the fittest person in the world, and that's going to attract like, we've got one client that we're working with right now that has like the biggest audience that we've ever even like gotten close to, like me, Mike, you, like most of the coaches in probably both programs all put together doesn't equal this guy's audience. And but he's only ever posted physique, like physique check type of stuff.
Hmm.
And so he's wondering why he can't he hasn't been able to this point attract, high paying, like majority of his audience is also in India where they really, really love bodybuilding,
Hmm.
right? And they just want to look at bodybuilding content and they're not necessarily going to buy anything from him. And so that's the frustration is like, this is where my audience is. This is where I've built my audience. And now how do I build a coaching business out of this? Like he's got the social stuff. He doesn't have the funnel stuff. And so that's
Yeah.
what we're working with him on hey, we have to make a shift here. Like people need to know that you're a dad, which no one knows that right now. People
Hmm.
need to know that you are a coach, which people know that you're fit. They know that you're being coached. They know that you're in shape, but they don't know that you actually have the knowledge to show somebody else. And this guy's got insane transformations with a bunch of clients that he's never posted, he's never
Yeah.
talked about. And so it's like people, you have to, it sounds so simple whenever you say it, but you have to show up as a coach on social media. You can't just be another fit person.
Dude, so we have an Instagram group with all of our students, and this is where we moderate everyone's content.
Mhm.
People post their content either before they post or after they post to get some feedback. One of the
I love
We
that.
see this every single day. Start your video with your face. That is like the number one piece of feedback that we give. Like
Hmm.
a lot of people will start the video with like the panning of what their first person view is, and then it will go into their face 10 seconds later. It's like, no,
Hmm.
start the video with your face every single time. Rule of thumb, do not miss that.
Hmm. Yeah. It's huge. It's huge. And if people can't, how do you expect someone to hire you as a coach if they've never actually, number one, heard your voice,
Mhm.
but number two, been able to sit in the seat of the camera and
And
envision
learn
what it
from
would be
it.
like for you to coach them?
Yep. Yeah, I literally had a conversation right before this call with one of my one-on-one clients, and she is really good top of funnel. So she does like B-roll meme or B-roll reels where
Mhm.
she'll say like, "Hey, if you want to lose 10 to 20 pounds before the holidays, comment the word guy and I'll send you a free breakfast guide," something like
Yeah.
that. She gets a ton of comments. She gets a ton of leads, like hundreds of leads every single week, but she can't convert them into calls because she doesn't have any middle of the funnel content. I was telling her, I'm like, you need to get on YouTube, you need to sit yourself in front of a desk, and you just need to talk for 10 minutes.
Mhm.
And you need to send that content to people in the DM so they can get to know you.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm like, you have a very wide reach, but now there's a depth issue. People don't trust you enough to go on, get on a call with you because they don't know you. And so that was the solution that we provided for her is like, turn the camera on, talk for 10 minutes about anything, and deepen the relationship that you have with the audience that's coming in.
And it doesn't have to be edited. It doesn't have to be a bunch of cuts. Like I don't, and I tell people too, especially if they coach other parents, it's like, they're like, well, my kids are always running around or you can hear in the background. I was like, good,
Yeah.
good, because that makes you relatable. Now they see your physique in a wholly, totally different light. They see
Yeah.
you as like somebody just like them dealing with the exact same problems in the exact same chaos and you're seeing the results. So now they can trust you that much more. I
Yeah.
don't
It
care
brings
if your
it
kids are
brings you
running
down to
around. I don't
planet
care if
Earth.
your kid comes jumping in the camera and smacks you or something. Like that's awesome
Yeah.
because we want people to see that stuff.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah, dude. I think it's important. That's exactly what we talked about on that call too. Is she was
Mhm.
like, "Oh, but this person is super edited this." I'm like, "Look at." I literally pulled up my YouTube channel. I was like, "My best performing videos is literally just me in my office on a webcam, sharing my screen on Zoom,
Mhm.
and just like typing." And I'm like, "Those are the people want to learn. People don't care about like the super flashy edits and the optimized. Like they just want to learn."
They're getting desensitized to that now, I feel like too. I mean, if
Yeah.
I feel like Hormozy's early like edited content swung everyone towards edited and then like now he's swung back to organic and people are just kind of like tuning out the highly edited because everyone started doing highly edited.
Yeah, it that stuff overstimmed me to begin with. I
Yeah.
had a couple editors that would do the highly edited stuff, and I was like, dude, like bring that
Tone it
down.
down.
Like I
Yeah.
all I want is subtitles and a couple cuts here and there. I don't want like the graphics. I don't want my head to be floating in outer space or anything like that. Like
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
goofy.
Yeah. It is funny. No, I think that's huge right now is just, I mean, start the podcast, do the YouTube video. I don't know if you're seeing the same metrics, but what we've seen on average in from the studies that we reference in order to educate our people is it takes between 6 and 7 hours now of content that someone has to consume in order to make a purchasing decision with you.
Yep.
It's like if you
Oh, the
think if
7
you're
hour
only
rule.
posting YouTube or like if you're only posting like reels and TikToks and stuff like that, it's a
It take you
lot of
take you
one
3
minute.
months, bro.
Yeah, yeah, it's a lot of 1 minute content that someone has to consume versus if you're putting out something like this, where people can listen to 45 minutes, an hour of content a week of you just talking. Like, I just got to get you to listen to 3 or 4 podcast episodes and watch my Instagram, and that's it.
Yep.
And
Yep.
you're caught up to that 6 hours very very quickly.
Yeah, I mean something I have every single one of my students do. They don't do this in PTBI because it's like in PTBI we start bare bones. You don't even know what a lead is. Like let me
Mhm.
explain what a lead is. Let me show you how to you see this little blue button that says post on Instagram. I'm going to teach you how to press that button.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but we have a program called Takeover, which is for the people who are graduating to the next level. And one of the things that we have them do is called an indoctrination video. It's essentially a webinar. It's a VSL. It's 30 to 45 minutes, but it is something that we put into the sales process to take someone from a cold lead to bring them all the way up to speed to where you are now to this
Hmm.
day. So that way it ramps up the warm up process that someone goes through when they first discover you. Now they know your entire backstory, they know your brand, they've seen your client results, they know your methodologies, they know your philosophy. You are no longer cold. And we put that right before the sales call. So that way when you're generating cold leads, but you're closing warm leads. Because
Hmm.
that indoctrination process of having them watch that 30 to 45-minute video before the sales call, there's no way that they're cold after that because at that point they know you.
Yeah, I love that so much. It's funny how a lot of the same problems are being solved on both ends because we So I had one of my one-on-ones today, and he's actually an equestrian coach, like super niche specific. And in the equestrian world, they do clinics at different farms across the country, and elite coaches will get invited to these clinics to come host 1 hour sessions or 30-minute sessions with tons of riders throughout the day, and these riders pay the coach basically to come host the clinic, and the farm gets extra revenue by doing a rev share with the coach. Anyways, all that to explain, basically this guy is like one of the elite coaches that's getting invited to tons of farms across America to come run these clinics, and he's trying to basically go from complete stranger in 1 hour, complete stranger, to closing somebody on his coaching by the end of this 1 hour kind of diagnostic test, where he runs them through a bunch of things, tells them what he sees, kind of diagnoses what they're actually struggling with and what could be even hurting the horse or themselves physically, and then kind of tells them a couple exercises. I can help you do these. Let's talk about coaching, all in 1 hour.
Mhm.
I was like, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot here, because I'm like, we got to get them to consume again 6 or 7 hours of content. How early are they registering for these clinics? He's like, well, 2 or 3 weeks typically. I'm like, what are we doing whenever they register? He's like, nothing. I just have like a spreadsheet of them. Like, dude, you have this huge system in AR. It's like, let's make that an AR form. Let's get them into this. Let's have an email sequence that goes out at bare minimum, that drips out up to the event and then after the event. Let's also implement them sharing all your socials with them early on. Let's also implement a few text conversations so that we're texting them and talking to them. We're in their phones now, we're on their social medias now, and we're in their email inbox now. I was like, if your close rate doesn't increase at these clinics, like, I'll pay you the difference
Yeah,
in what we actually invested time wise to building this. And so we set up a huge kind of sequence leading up to these clinics now, to where people are actually going to feel like friends of his by the time they hop on these calls, or but by the time they actually see him in person. And
that's
I told him
genius.
this time and this nurture sequences is weighted differently. There's an email which might be kind of like bottom of the totem pole, or maybe seeing a random reel might be the bottom of the totem pole. And then there's maybe an email because they actually gave their emails. And then there's a text is a big step up from that, because we're in their tech, that's personal.
Mhm.
And then like this in-person time where you get an hour with them, that's where now you can become best friends,
Mhm.
because you have the foundational relationship, but we don't want to be going from stranger to sale in 1 hour. And he's actually getting some of those at every clinic, but now we're hoping we can kind of increase that, but it's all the same principle.
Yeah, yeah. I have a question for you, man,
Yeah.
because I met you summer shredding 2022. You're selling, gym equipment,
Mhm.
and then all of a sudden you're hitting the scene with AR funnels.
Yeah.
Where did that transition come from, and how did you learn so much about, like, where did your knowledge for lead generation, systems, and all that kind of stuff come into play?
Yeah, yeah, it's a great question. So basically around that time, me and my sister, we were just starting to crack six figures, the 10K mark in our coaching business. And so like I had started the equipment company like before that, and so I was still trying to kind of like, I'm actually closing that down this year. This will be the first time that I've actually announced that, but I'm doing like my final clear out sale for Black Friday, and then
Mhm.
I'm done with that company. It's just kind of trickled in, and product businesses are so much tougher, man. Anyways, long story short, we were running this coaching company and scaling this coaching company, and we still have it. Actually, it still does really well. And we kind of built this version of AR that became AR, this first version of this system for that company. And long story short, I get to Texas. I follow my now wife to Texas, and I don't really have anything going on here. I'm doing the kind of like this supplement company over here. I'm doing this equipment company. I'm doing this coaching company. And it was just like too many things I was trying to give my attention to. And so I actually met with Mike through a referral. A friend of a friend was like, hey, go talk to this guy who's got this coffee company, is what Mike had at the time. And so I went and met with Mike, and I was going to hire Mike as a mentor to help me grow these e-commerce companies, because that was the one that was struggling for me, was the e-commerce stuff.
Mhm.
And I was actually going to pay him for mentorship, and he starts to talk to me, and he starts to ask me questions about what I got going on, and even telling me some of the problems that he had in his current businesses and what he was trying to do. And I was giving him ideas, and he was like, hey, how about instead of me or you paying me, he was like, how about I pay you? And I was like,
Hmm.
what? And he's like, how about I pay you to come on and help me with some of these things that we're talking about, and we can just see what happens. Like, no harm, no foul. If nothing works out, then we can both go our separate ways. I was like, okay, I'm not gonna turn it down. So like I knew I was gonna learn more by just taking this this like small amount of money to come be around him for a while. And so I accepted that. We went on and I helped him with like his coffee company, which he since exited. I helped him build out a group of entrepreneurs, an entrepreneurship group. And that actually started going really well. But our problem with that when we built that together was we had everybody from like we had a roofer in there all the way to somebody that bakes donuts and sells
Mm.
donuts. And like there was this wide gap of education that we were trying to give and educate every single week on. And so what we ended up doing was looking at how can we niche this down. He got his start as a personal trainer and even doing online coaching. Um, I was still doing personal training and online coaching. And so it was like, well, why don't we start there? So we were going to build just a group for trainers. Then he found out about what I had built systems wise for mine.
Hmm.
And he was like, hey, this thing could have some legs. Like what if we changed it though when we focused on just conversations? And so we built out the system. We kind of navigated into what now became the actual first version of AR. We launched that January like 15th of 2023. So January 15th of last year. So we're going on almost 2 years now. And yeah, it's just grown and scaled, and we grew way too fast at the beginning, which is a problem that most entrepreneurs don't think about having. But it was like Mike was doing all the sales side of the business. I was doing all the fulfillment side of the business. So he would sell them and then I would do everything else from there because I was the software guy, like doing all the ops. And we grew to where he and I both were doing individually like 70-ish hours a week in the business and had zero, like red line, complete red line. And we were just backed up on calls all day, every day. And we went to like 0 to 60 super fast, and then ended up having to like hire and figure out and taking like a little pressing pause on stuff basically to take a dip back down to get our ops in order so that we could actually go and go beyond that and scale to where we are now. So I know that was more information than I kind of you kind of asked for, but that was really the arc of the story. Is like you and I met in 2022, and then in 2023 I went to go hit up Mike for like mentorship. He asked me to come on and help him with some stuff, and then it just evolved into
Yeah,
what it
that's
is
awesome.
today.
Yeah, because I remember I saw the shift. You were doing the equipment stuff, and then
Hmm.
all of a sudden I see you on the face of ARFunnel. I was like, oh, how did you make the jump there?
Yeah,
It was interesting that you guys started with a group of people who are outside of the fitness industry and then niche down to fitness coaches. I think
yeah,
fitness coaches are the best, dude.
they
Like
are.
they're
They are.
they're
They're
the
all.
dopest fucking people. They're
Hmm.
hardworking. They're cool to hang out with. I'm in a ton of. I've been in masterminds with a ton of different 7-figure, 8-figure business owners, agency owners, e-com owners. They're all nerds, man. Fitness people are fucking dope. I love
Yeah.
I love fitness people.
Well, in the fitness industry too, if you're a fitness coach, you at least aren't expecting a quick fix.
Yeah.
Right? Like you're on average, you're not coming into anything expecting a quick fix because you have like that equation that I mentioned earlier. You figured that out physically, so and you can at least we can draw the parallel of, hey, it took you a long time to get to this like where you're at with your health and fitness, right? And it's going to take your clients a long time too. You know, you're coming to us because you want access to this expertise that we have kind of built out and scaled with our in this space, and so it's going to take you as our client a while to grow and scale into it. So it's an easy
They get it.
demographic to work with because they get the hard work aspect.
Yeah. I love
Yeah.
it. I love it. Yeah, fitness is dope, man. I love it. I think fitness coaches are a little bit more down to earth too
Yes.
in the entrepreneurial online space.
Yeah. Definitely. Eh, I had this other question kind of in the same vein, I guess, as far as fitness coaches to what I just asked you. How important is it, do you think, for a fitness coach to have a clear niche? That's always something that's kind of debated in the space.
I think it's I think the thing is that people take it too far.
Hmm.
I think that it's one thing to have a niche, but it's another thing to have an ideal demographic that's so fucking specific
Small.
that like people overthink it too much.
Hmm.
For me, it's like I help guys lose weight. That's a niche. That's going to separate you from people who are doing keto, people who are doing fit your macros, people who are doing yoga, people who are training for marathons. Like that is a niche.
Hmm.
I help 45-year-old men who have two kids and are twice divorced and, are, making $60,000 a year
Yeah.
and need to lose 45 pounds in the next 90 days or they're going to die. Like, you don't need to be that specific.
Mm,
Like, like men, female, weight loss, muscle building, and I think maybe a little bit around personal identity, like
yeah.
uh, first responders or blue collar workers, 9 to 5ers, entrepreneurs. I think if you could play into like personal identity, it is important, but like you don't need to get into demographics.
Hmm.
That's where I think people get too specific. So ideally niche specific around a specific goal and a specific challenge and a specific identity.
Yeah.
But when you start getting into demographics, people overthink it and then they get confused and then they're paralyzed and then they don't make any moves.
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah, I feel the same way. I feel like people take it to one extreme or the other. It's either I help everyone and then you're really not talking to anybody, or I help this one person or this one group and the group has four people in it.
Yeah.
And you're like, listen, the most you can make is getting these four people to buy if you're going to talk to this person. So do you really want to do that? Or do you want to maybe
Broaden it up a
back
little
up the
bit.
reins
Yeah.
a little bit? Yeah. So that makes a ton of sense. What's
Yeah.
next for you, man? I know you just got off a retreat.
Yeah, dude, the retreat was really great. I was super emotional this week. I always get very emotional around the retreat weeks just because um you meet you work with these students for a year and then you meet them in real life and then you build these over the course of a week and you build such a deep relationship with them that they really do feel like family.
Hmm.
And what I've come to learn now that we've done this for about 4 years now, this has been our fourth retreat, and the speakers that we had at this retreat were all previous students from PTBI. So we didn't have any speaker that didn't come from PTBI.
That's awesome.
And what I realized is like I've essentially built my own school. And I feel like a teacher where every single year I get new students and I get to watch them and I help mold them. I get to watch them grow and then I get to see them when they're alumni after
Hmm.
they've gone out into the world and done really big, amazing things. So for me, man, I love what I do. I love PTBI. As long as I can continue making money from this and I can continue impacting people from this, I'm going to do this for as long as possible. Maybe I'll sell it. Maybe I'll fizzle out one day. I
Hmm.
don't really see myself building another business. I am extremely lazy.
Yeah.
I don't like working very hard. And so if this business is making me money and I'm having fun doing it, why stress and break my back over building another business that, I could read Harry Potter and, love the students that I work with. So
Yeah.
as of right now, man, me and my wife, we just got married. We're going to move to Austin. I'm going to
Congratulations
continue.
again on that.
Thank you, bro. We're gonna continue with PTBI. If it doesn't ever grow bigger than it is now, I'm totally fine with that. Like,
Mm,
we're doing around seven figures pretty consistently, pretty easily.
mhm.
Very, very low management on my end. Our students are happy. Our students are great to work with. I love my team. Me and my wife are putting money away every single year. Like, I'm good. I'm really, really happy.
That's awesome, man.
And it would take a catastrophic event for me to want to dramatically change what I'm doing. Like for me, like this is my dream life. Like I feel like I made it. So
That's awesome, bro.
that's what's on the horizon.
That's so great to hear. That's so great to hear. And that's also something too that I can tell you've done a great deal of thinking about like what that dream life looks like for you. And I think a lot of coaches, um, that there's a certain spot in whenever you're scaling your coaching company that at least what we found with our clients that it becomes for the people that enjoy coaching, it becomes way more stress than they ever wanted to deal with. And for the people that enjoy just the business side of things, it's until you cross that threshold, it's not necessarily super fun for them,
Mhm.
right? And that's a question you have to answer as an entrepreneur too. Is like how big do you want to grow the business? And that the default answer or like the right answer might be as big as it can be. Like why would you not build it as big as you can possibly? And it's like once you experience like what I was talking about that season of life where Mike and I were completely redlined for like 60 full days, 90 full days of we didn't enjoy our life. We didn't
Yeah.
enjoy our business. We felt like we had built ourselves a prison. Like that's how it actually felt in the moment. And that's when I got married. It was like
Yeah.
right at the peak of that. And so me trying to take 7 days off of the business to go on my honeymoon was like there was a significant amount of stress in from for me and for him for like me taking that away that time. And I came back to a complete ocean of stress. And that's when it hit me is like, I either have to replace myself in a lot of these different spots in the business so that it doesn't hinge on me, or we need to put this, like scale this back into a way where it's more sustainable. We might not make as much money, but way more sustainable, and we can enjoy our lives, because there's something to be said for enjoying your life
Hmm.
and living the dream life like you just said. And so what we did was we took some time to scale it back, to build the right team, the right ops and kind of like systems that we needed to build internally to be able to scale comfortably to where we want it to be at. And I feel like that's where we're kind of at now. So it is a question that you have to put time to answering as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I remember a conversation I had with Ravi Abuvala, who
Yeah.
was he was a mentor of mine back in 2022, and I was talking to him, and he was talking about how Sam Ovens, I think the most that Sam Ovens made was like 30 to 50 million in a year in revenue.
Hmm.
And Sam talked about how he scaled his company back from 30 million a year to 6 million a year and actually made more profit
Yep.
scaled back. And he's like, it's better down here. And Ravi was like, look, I understand what he's saying, but I feel like I have to taste it. I have to push, I have to see it for myself
To see.
in,
Yeah.
in order for me to make that decision. And so it's a real thing. For me, I felt like I felt that to where pushing for revenue for the sake of growth isn't necessarily worth it if you're not making profit and you're
Hmm.
stressed the fuck out.
Yeah.
There's a sweet spot.
There is. There definitely is. And for a lot of coaches, I always ask that question. If I'm going to work with someone one on one, I always ask that question. Like, you got to figure out what level of business you want to run. And they're always confused by it. And like, do you want to get to the point where you are managing, multiple VAs, multiple DMers, multiple closers, you have multiple coaches? Like, do you feel like you would want to own a business where you are paying all these people and you need to manage all these employees? And sometimes it's like, yeah, that'd be sick. It's like, okay, then you want to own a big business. We're going to operate like this.
Mhm.
A lot of times though, it's also like, no, I enjoy coaching. Like I want to
Yeah.
coach people. It's like, okay, then you might want to hire one person to do some like administrative tasks to take the business side of stuff off of your plate. And then let's run you at 30 clients at $500 a month, make you 15K, which is really a great living to live
Yep.
off of. And you can coach and work with just the best of the best top clients that you want to work with.
Yep. Yep. There's nothing wrong with that.
No,
Yeah,
not at
like I
all.
said, that's a sweet spot.
It really is. It really is. So, Zakk, this has been awesome. I appreciate all of our conversations, man, but this has been sick. I know you're a busy guy. I always ask one last question, though, to every single guest that I have on the BAMCast. So, the BAMCast, BAM stands for by any means necessary. Okay.
Mhm.
Um, you kind of hinted already to this answer, but what are you, Zakk Colburn, going to accomplish by any means necessary?
Dude, my life path right now is very clear.
Mm-hmm.
I want to continue running PTBI profitably and take those profits and invest them in financial security. My golden number is 10 million.
Yep.
You know, if you follow the FIRE principle, you can live off of 3% of your investment portfolio and essentially never run out of money.
Mm-hmm.
3% of 10 million is 300K a year. That's all I need. I'm good with that.
Yeah.
Retire Megan, continue running PTBI as a cash flow business that I enjoy working with, and continue nurturing students into their path, have a couple kids, raise a family, spend as much time back in California with my parents and raising kids. And that's literally the dream. Like that's what
Awesome.
I'm going to do by any means necessary. And I don't need to stress over it because I know it's already happened.
Mm-hmm.
I know if I just stay consistent with it and chip at it away every single day, that maybe might be 10 to 15 years away. And I know I'm going to have a blast from now until then. So there's no rush to get there.
That's huge, man. I love it. I've always said 10 mil is my golden number as well, because of the exact same reason. It's like, if I can live off 3 to 5% of that, and if I can't live off 3 to 5% of that, we got problems. We
Yeah,
need, we
for,
need to we need to
for real.
figure out our priorities a little bit. So that's awesome, man. I love it. I
Cool, man.
appreciate your time, man. I appreciate you setting. I know you got a big trip you're on, and I hope you have a ton of fun with the boys.
Thanks, man.
All right,
Appreciate
man.
it.
Thanks,
Peace.
buddy. Guys, thank you so much for listening to that entire episode of the BAMcast. Hope you got as much out of it as I did. Zakk's an awesome guy. And if you haven't given him a follow, make sure you click down below and check out all that he's got going on. So, um, I appreciate you taking in this episode and just listening to it in its entirety. And I hope that you will subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube, or follow the show if you're listening on any type of audio platform. If you got any value out of it, I would really appreciate it if you would share the show with a friend, even if it's just a timestamp to me and Zakk's conversation, or even a timestamp to another video or episode. It would mean a lot, because that is the way that the show is going to grow, is if you share it with more people. Leave a review if you're on audio, leave a comment if you're on video, and I appreciate you guys, and I'll see you next time.